thought that you were, it was like one of them said.
Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Warner's copy.
Mic check 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
We started. We're on the air. Okay, good evening and welcome to the Kennebunkport Zoning Board of Appeals. Tonight we have a hybrid meeting, which means it's available via Zoom and in person. If you go online and you look at the agenda for this meeting tonight has instructions on how to participate via Zoom. And if you're here, then you're in person. So with that, I'm going to begin by going through roll call here. So Kevin McDonald.
Here.
Michelle Powell.
Here.
Mary Beth Gilbert is not here yet, or not here.
Is she online, perhaps?
I don't know.
She didn't text me.
Okay.
Nobody online yet.
Okay.
She didn't notify as of yet.
Paul Cadigan, Chair, I'm here. Karen Schlegel
Here.
and April Defoe.
Here.
So we have a quorum. We have, the agenda has 3 items really on it. The first is just approval of minutes. The second is the application that's pending before the board. And then the last is election of officers. So with regard to the approval of the minutes, the minutes are appropriately long from our last meeting, which was held on October 3rd. But the 17 page, was it 7?
Transcript, yep.
17 pages of minutes, 16 full pages, and I have not had the opportunity to review them, I just got them today. So, and I know that Kevin was not at the meeting, so what I would like to do is to have a vote that we table the review of these minutes until our next meeting. Plus, it's gonna take some work to go over them and to get over everything. So can I, so I'm going to make my own motion. Oh, good. So Mary Beth Gilbert is now here.
Hey, Mary Beth. Mary Beth.
Mary Beth, what did I say? Oh, you're pointing out.
me down there?
Well,
But you can stay there.
or,
We'll just shuffle
We'll
it
just,
around.
That's okay.
we'll
here,
just
pass
move
it
you.
down.
Pass it.
Pass that
Thank
down.
you. Go along.
Well, this is sort of like a,
pass that down too.
Okay, we're a game like that.
Print out of the minutes if needed.
it's like a Keystone Cops kind of introduction. You all set, Mary Beth, you all set? Okay. So where was I? So I was saying that I'm going to propose that we table the minutes of our October 3rd, 2022 meeting until our next meeting. We have a better chance to review them all. So I'm making that motion. Second. All in favor, show of hands. So that's all in favor from the full board, 6 members. So they are tabled until we next meet. So before we pick up the application, which is of Wendy Good and Timothy Good, one thing that I spoke to about the application with regard to the April at the town office was that there was a little bit of miscommunication, I'm not sure who or what, but we're supposed to be able to get a mailed copy of these documents by a certain period of time prior to this meeting. And because of the miscommunication, that did not occur. So April, not April here, but April there.
The other April.
Other April, asked if that would be okay if we proceeded, because I think maybe she didn't get around to communicating or something. So I said, I didn't see that as a problem, but I would like to officially make it not a particular problem for tonight's proceedings. The requirement, let me pause and say, I think we've mentioned this once in the past, but in the future, it might not be a bad idea if we revisit the need to provide written materials to the board in this electronic age, but that's another discussion for another evening.
A lot of paper.
Lot of
paper.
Well, we're keeping,
I'm not-
and we are the state that produces paper, so. But at any rate, I'd like a motion that we waive the requirement for the goods application that this board needed to receive by U.S. mail written copies of the materials at a certain date prior to this hearing. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, also unanimous. So that is waived for this particular matter. So the first matter, the only substantive matter really, is the application of the goods. So I'm going to read what we have on the agenda at this time. The applicants seek approval to utilize an outbuilding at their home located at 88 Goose Rocks Road for their home occupation, specifically for a gallery, classroom for watercolor lessons, customer meetings, and order pickup location. Parenthetical alternative to 11 Ocean Avenue, Kennebunkport, and parenthetical period. Assessors tax map 16, block 1, lot 2 in the Farm and Forest District. So, the way we'll have this is that whichever one of you want to speak, or both of you do, one sec. Well, go ahead and stand up. I'll have you address the board. You can go through your application for us. We have all the materials and we have reviewed them, but you can highlight that then. I will see if there is anybody, I'll see if there's nobody else here, but if somebody drifts in and they want to opine, then we'll let them opine. And if not, we'll check to see if anybody is on Zoom and if they are interested in participating. Do we have anybody in Zoom at this time? No one on Zoom. We do not. And then we will see if the code office wants to be heard on this.
On Monday night.
we'll see if the code office wants to be heard on this application, and then we'll end up seeing if there's any questions that haven't been already asked of the applicants, and we'll close it for discussion, and then we'll take a vote. So with that in mind, Timothy, show is yours.
Greetings to all. For those that don't know us, Tim and Wendy, we sat down, and the painting right behind you is one of Wendy's pieces of work, right behind you. And
But that will not influence our judgment.
no, but it looks good. For those who know me that I'm very heavily involved in Port Village Fire Company here, the president of Port Village Fire Company. So, long time standing in the town of Kennebunkport. We've lived on Goose Rocks Road now for 25 years, and we've had the store for close to 15 years, 11 Ocean Avenue. For those who don't know us well, we have the second lowest store in Dock Square, meaning that hurricane floods first and then we flood second. And the necessity to have an alternative location to maintain business is becoming, as every year marches on, the water creeps in, and we got flooded on December 23rd this past year, to the extent of 5 years ago. It was just as deep and as much damage, and knocked us out of contention for Christmas, the few days before Christmas, after Christmas, in that little bit of business that we can pick up in early January. So we're looking to take an outbuilding that we have, and Wendy is now doing a fair amount of both online and in-person watercolor lessons, and it's becoming a very big piece of her business. And there are people who have asked, we'd like to get 2 or 3 people together and have a lesson. Well, we don't have a great place in our house to do that. The store isn't really the best place to do that. So the building that we're talking about would be set up as in a gallery situation, just nothing, just artwork hanging, with classroom type of space, where they can sit around a table and she can do her lessons. But more importantly, we got into trouble this past year where people were picking things up, and we weren't sure where they went, because they went into a trailer, they went upstairs. When the flood came, we had stuff. So we're looking to, the problem we have down there is not going away, and we're going to experience that. We're committed for another 3 years at the store down there in our current lease, and that is an everyday issue down there. We wake up and look at a tide chart every single day. It's just the way life is these days. So the application, we do set back off the road a little bit. There's plenty of space to turn around. There's plenty of space to park. For those, it's a nice paved driveway and very easily seen from the road. Good, easy. We don't expect that lots of cars, lots of people. It's kind of an alternative type of place. Maybe a few times a week that she has either a lesson or somebody picks up something. In our framing and gallery work, there's a lot of customization of framing and matting and artwork, and a lot of times it's just too difficult to do it at the store because there's too much going on down there. And so that kind of thing, we'd like to do those type of things. The intention is not to have a retail store on Goose Rocks Road. It's an alternative location for some offset of what's going on downtown. And short story is what we're looking to do.
Okay. Before we get to asking questions that we may have, and I've got 1 or 2, but did you want to speak as well, Wendy, or are you good with?
He summed it up very
He's
nicely.
the mouthpiece of the family for the evening?
We kind of split everything, and he's done the paperwork part of this. I wanted to have a place, basically, my biggest part is for the
Oh,
lessons.
come on up to the microphone so everybody can hear
sorry.
you. That's quite all right.
I wanted, as he said, a place basically for the lessons, and there is no room in the store for that. We don't have the space in our home, so we have this outbuilding that would be perfect for that. And as he mentioned, sometimes it's very difficult to pick up waters at the store, as a lot of you know.
Been there?
Yeah. And it's just a great alternative spot to be able to have people just do that.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. If you want, we could start with Timothy answering questions, or you could both stand up there, whatever works best for you guys.
She can stay with me.
Okay. Let's see, I'm gonna work down the aisle here. Mr. McDonald, do you have any questions?
I do, actually, just a couple, I think. So the parking piece. So how many spots do you have there? I mean, you indicated there were spots. I wasn't-
I don't, there's 100 and something feet off the road, and then when you get in close to the house, there's room probably for, we have 3 vehicles, and there's plenty of room for when they're not in the garage.
Yep.
So there's probably 5 cars
I would say
space.
5.
You know,
Okay.
plenty, on pavement, and then there are a couple other things, but we don't expect ever to be
Okay.
into that range.
Yeah, I wanted to hear a little bit more about that parking.
Yeah, so-
Elaborate on that just a little bit more.
I was gonna swing over to Warner if I could. So Warner, I think the home requires 2 spaces, and then for a home occupation like this, is there a specified number of spaces? Is it another 2?
I mean, you would, so in this case here, I mean, the garage spaces of their home qualify for the 2 for the single family. So
Right.
everything that you have out in the driveway, is on paper, that's available for the home lock. I mean, you would, if you had employees, you would look for an additional space, per employee. And then, for the, this building size here, some of it is dependent on what we hear, in terms of what the proposal is. But, as it sits, and I've driven by, actually visited the property a number of months back, and, there's adequate parking space here for this,
Okay.
application.
Just following up on that, Warner, so if there's, oh, no, actually, let me ask you guys, class-wise, when you're giving instruction, do you have a cap on how many people at any one time you give instructions
I
to?
wouldn't do any more than 4 people.
You wouldn't do any more than 4 people. And so if there's no employees, is there a requirement for a number of, I don't think there is a requirement for spaces with regard to this kind of endeavor of a home market. It's only for employees, right?
That's correct, yeah, we don't have anything real particular in terms of parking for, that deals with a home lock.
Okay.
Yep.
So-
It's pretty minimal in terms of what you have. I'm gonna take a quick run through the ordinance, but
I think their driveway may be able to physically accommodate it. But we just want to make sure it's not, a parking or
Yeah.
traffic.
Yep.
So it sounds like maybe 6 spots would be required if I do the math, 4 plus 2. And,
Well, they're
So-
already in, so if they're
No,
at 4.
no.
yes, right?
Let's ask one more question. Are you gonna hire anybody, or are you just gonna be you guys?
Oh, we're not gonna hire anybody specific for this. There may be one of the staff that works downtown may come there on an occasion, but I don't even know if that's gonna happen. Probably
Definitely
not.
not for the lessons.
Not for lessons.
Not for the lessons, and then if staff was coming by, it'd be just one person at a time?
And if they did, it would just be to pick up stuff to
pick up.
take down.
Just
to
to
the
pick
store.
up stuff, so a hit and run, it's not somebody who's working out of the
Nope.
premises, out of the building.
No.
So if there's, I think that, I think that there's, like Warner was saying, there's no requirement other than per employee.
Oh.
Plus homeowner spaces, and then employee on-site spaces of the home lock, which is sort of capped at the number of people that can be doing that. But that'd be people working on site, not necessarily somebody dropping and
Oh.
delivering. But that's how I'd interpret it. And then I don't think we have a requirement, flaw as it may be, but I don't think we have a requirement within
Because
the
they're not
home occupation for, like, if it was a teacher.
retail, because they're not retail. They're going home off,
Yeah.
not retail.
Does that sound right?
Retail would have parking requirements, but we're not going that route.
Well, and I'm just looking through the table, so we don't have anything on the non-residential parking standard that ties to a home walk. If you were to, so if you were classifying this as like a professional office,
Yeah.
something like that. I mean, even then, that's one space per 200 square feet of floor area, and you've got a 12 by 24 building, which is 288 square feet. So, per the table, if you were applying it, you would have one, 2 additional spaces, yeah, at that point.
Yeah.
Because you kick over the 200.
So the way we're discussing this, our understanding sounds correct to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And I,
A rare
and I,
exception.
and I heard Warner say that there's adequate parking there,
Yes,
based on your site review.
and that is correct, right? Warner has said that. Okay, good.
So just to clarify, the application was 1 to 2 cars at a time, but it could be 4 cars at a time.
Probably not.
Okay,
I would be surprised if it was that much.
So-
I would discourage that many people.
okay. So in general, 1 to 2 cars,
Yeah.
maybe maxing out at 4 to 4.
Yeah.
But the
But even-
homeowners have
but-
garage spaces, so
Plus,
that covers their parking. So it would just be the folks that were frequenting the business or being employed by the business.
Right, so 2 cars for them,
Mm-hmm.
and then an additional 1 to 2, or up to additional 4,
Which is still, I mean,
which is still
come to one of
above-
our
Yeah,
holiday
yeah.
gatherings,
I think
there's,
it's
there's
one.
10 cars in the driveway, so
Yeah.
there's plenty of room.
Right,
Yeah.
I'm not sure you were getting up to 4, but if we were applying those standards, it's 200, one
One per
space
200.
per 200 square feet.
Right.
And they have less than 300 square feet,
right.
so that'd just be the,
1.5.
I'd see that as too bad.
Yeah, so per the requirements, the only parking requirements are 2 for the home, and then
Employee.
1 for the employee, right?
So, right, so if you had employees, other than the resident, right? Because you're already picking up the resident, in the 2. Then you would have a space for the employee. Then, if you were calling this retail, it would be 1 space per 200 square feet. If you were calling it a professional office, you would also have it at 1 space per 200 square feet. So the home occ use itself, per that table, you would have 2 spaces for, call it the public, and then if you had an employee, you'd have an additional, so you'd have 3.
So we're good.
Okay.
We could discuss it further, but
All right.
I've
No,
got enough
I
information.
think-
I'm satisfied
I
on
drive
it.
up and down the road 15 times a day, so I physically know the layout. There's, in my guesstimation, there's physically enough space there.
Yep.
But we just want to make sure we're not going into a retail classification and you're keeping it as, I know I've had to pick up, so I think it would be a great idea. But let's keep asking, because we all may have a few more questions.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Anything else, Kevin?
Signage, is there any signage associated with it?
Yeah.
So on-site at Goose Rocks, you will have no sign.
Probably not. I don't
Hadn't really
think
given
so.
it any
No,
thought,
really haven't. If I was
if
to-
anything, it would be something on the front of the building, maybe,
Yeah.
a little sign that
hadn't
Wendy
really
Whip's a
thought
good
about
fine
that,
art.
Because
Um,
that wasn't the intention of having it, like the store downtown. It was just more of, okay, you can come by 88 Goose Rocks Road and pick up your stuff, or you can come for
To
your lesson
lesson,
there and you directly tell people
consult.
where to go. It's not really intended for like traffic going to Goose Rocks Beach to stop in and shop.
So
It's not
that-
anything like that.
So
Correct.
that's where I was going.
Yes.
That's my thought about the signage, is if there
Yes.
was a signage, you're well-known, and if there is somebody, so then that starts the snowball of somebody just pulling in when you're having a class, or
Exactly.
4 people pulling in because they
This
see
is something
somebody pulling
I want to keep control.
down low.
It's not
Yeah.
like downtown where
Right.
you go in there and people are coming and going. I want
Right.
control of what's going on here.
Right, because it's
This
your
is
home.
my home too,
Right.
so
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
I try to keep as much control in this business as I can. It's not easy.
Under the Homeock section, sub B3, talks about they can have what signs are permitted under 240-6.12E.
Correct,
Do you know what that is off the cuff?
I do.
I do
It
too.
says home occupation signs. One sign identifying the name, address, and profession of a permitted home occ or lawfully existing non-conforming home occ shall be allowed, provided such sign does not exceed 2 square feet in area and is not illuminated.
So that would be your restriction, your
2 foot
limitation. You
square-
got no
2
problem
square
with
feet.
that? Good.
That's it for me.
That's it for you. Well, Anything from,
My question was answered. as
your
far as
question was
the,
answered? Skip me. Go ahead. Anything for you, Kim?
I have two questions.
Yes.
Do you need to provide, or will you provide bathroom facilities, and what is your disposal for your paint supplies?
Well, it's water, so it doesn't need a disposal.
That's
It's
a part of the
water-based.
process.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not like it's oil paint or
Okay.
anything with turpentine stuff, it's water-based. Bathroom, don't anticipate that they'll need it. If they, by some need, they can go in the house and use it.
Okay, just wanted to hear it on public record, okay.
Good. You good? Tammy, you good?
I'm good with that.
There you go.
So, tell me about the shed. What is it? I mean, I know I have a shed and it's not insulated and it has icky windows and, you know, it has cobwebs and, so, I mean, is the shed like sheetrocked? Is it, I mean, if you're hosting people there, then I kind of want to know what the condition of the shed is that these people are going to.
Well, shed is a stretch. I mean, it houses my equipment, but it will no longer, and I'll have to find a home for that at some point for my stuff. But the shed is unfinished on the inside, and so we'd have to apply for a permit to finish, to get the finish off of,
It just needs to be sheetrock.
sheetrocked and insulated, and it will be a very class, look to it. It's not gonna be cobwebs. It's gonna be done up nice.
It's a very attractive building on the outside right now.
Yeah.
It's all nice, clean, neat.
Is it like a store-bought shed, or is it,
Oh,
did you
no.
make it, or?
Sheds happen, or Sheds R Us
Sheds
or
R Us?
somewhere.
Yeah.
So it was built, but yes,
Shed
Yeah.
happens.
shed
Should
happens.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a nice looking shed. It's not I wouldn't call it a
The house,
shed.
the
I would
garage,
call
the
it an
shed,
outbuilding,
The
yeah,
grounds are well kept.
yeah,
I can probably find a picture of it if you'd like.
I would like to see a picture of it.
yeah.
And Werner, what would you require in order for them to have lessons and do this homework in the shed? What would you require for conditions?
Yeah, so depending on, the seasonality of it, if it's intended to be used year-round, then it'll need to be insulated, to meet the code requirements for insulation, if you're gonna be heating it. As well as, we'll verify the egress, elements of it as well. 288 square feet, you've got one door, so I mean, that's plenty, in terms of the egress for it. So, it'll need to have lighting and things of that nature, but it's pretty minimal for something that small.
Right, I'm
intent-
just-
the
I'm just thinking
intention
life
is-
safety, to make sure people are safe
Sure,
in it.
yeah, I mean, it'll need to be sheetrocked, sheetrocked, finished, it'll have to have some type of, finished floor to it. They'll need to, I haven't seen whether or not, whether it sits at grade or whether it needs to have a little bit of a ramp to get into the door, but,
Oh, that's a nice building.
Yeah, I know.
Doesn't look like my shed.
Do you mind if we pass that so
Yeah.
everybody can have a look? We're all looking at the picture of the
yeah,
shed. It's beautiful, huh?
wow.
Does it have electricity? That's very impressive.
No, it'll,
Oh,
yeah.
actually, my shed does.
Want to move the lessons?
I know.
I was wondering.
No, you wouldn't want people in my shed,
There you go, thank you very
but
much.
it does have electricity.
The intention is to put a mini split and have an AC and heat in it, and, when it's 40 below zero, a mini split's not gonna run that well, but at 40 below zero, we're not gonna be out there, so, but,
Yeah.
I would say a strong 3-season, and have it available that, it's gonna heat itself well in a normal winter for us. But it's not gonna be heated every day of the week, only when needed.
So what would be Werner, I'm asking you, what would be the conditions? Like if we approve this home occ, obviously we can't approve it under the conditions that the shed is in right now, because it doesn't meet all of the conditions that you just said
Yep.
would have to happen, so would they have to get an occupancy permit or something before they could start using this as a home occ?
Yes, so, I mean, so, well, really three things, so one is, your all's decision, step number, is the first step. Second step would be a building permit, to finish the interior, and so we'd be looking for those specs. And then once it's been finished, then, and we would do an inspection for the insulation piece of it. Electrical work needs to be done by, licensed master electrician, will need to do that work. Then we'll do a final inspection.
What about water?
For occupancy.
Smoke detector, fire.
They need to have water?
No.
No, I mean,
No?
not unless they as a function, needed,
We
but
don't.
no,
We don't plan to put water in there, no.
no, not,
So when you do watercolor,
Bring a
it's just a bucket?
water out.
Okay.
yeah.
Once
no,
again,
there's
a bucket
no
is a
requirement for that.
stretch. She uses kind of fancy little
Mason jar.
mason jars.
I am
So the
curious though,
building
under
will
home
not comment.
occupation though, if they decided they wanted to run water there and have a sink, there's nothing that would prohibit that,
No,
right?
at that point, I mean, we'd be, we'd want to know where where your wastewater's going at that point, and so, but, even for, just a sink, not dealing with any black water, you can do a pretty simple system for that, so.
Okay. April?
I think I'm good.
Mary Beth?
I just need clarification on the sign. So if we're, just to understand what the board's position's gonna be. So if we're saying that, what Wendy and Tim have said, this won't be a retail, but like on Route 9, there are galleries, and people do pull in. So in the area, people are used to seeing a sign with a gallery, and that means I can pull in. So that's where I'm just concerned, do we say that a sign's allowed, or does that open it up to that fine line of retail, which we don't want to do on that road?
Well, I would,
Well, home occ does
just to-
allow
yeah,
Yeah,
a small sign.
right.
Whether they choose to or not, that will be up to them. Because it now is their private residence that will be bringing traffic in their driveway, which they may or may not want. But in home occupation, they're allowed a
Correct.
small
2
sign.
foot,
Right, 2 square feet.
2 by 2.
And
Well,
also, just to be clear,
no more
so
than
in
2
farm and
square feet.
forest, I mean, retail is a conditional use
Yep.
in that zone.
Yep.
And so whenever, whenever I look at, home ocks, whenever folks come in and say, here, this is what we're looking to do. One of the ways that I look at this is I look at these as a mini conditional use, right? They're not in front of the planning board, they're in front of ZBA for, an abridged kind of mini version of what it could be. And so, should, and this is a discussion that we have with folks, should they outgrow their home occupation as to whether or not, is there a path that then takes them potentially through a planning board process for a site plan review? And so I always ask that question of what's permissible in the zone to begin with? Should you outgrow your home occ? Is there a path, for you to grow at that location? Or is it gonna relegate you somewhere else, just because of the zone? So, so in this case, I mean, retail is a conditional use in farm and forest, as well as, the professional office, that's also a conditional use, in farm and forest. So, in terms of deciding whether or not something is, potentially allowable or fits within the zoning, that's one of the things that I look for.
Okay, so then what's,
Sometimes a shock to folks when they find out what can happen in their zone.
Right.
so what's the, Tim and Wendy have said this is our home, and we actually want to limit. So how does that actually come, how does that work? How, if there's a small sign and then it gets known that, word gets out, hey, Wendy has a home office, and I went down to the dock and they're closed, I'm gonna zip by because I know there's another site, and it just happens because you know,
Sometimes things grow, right?
Okay.
You know, just naturally speaking, you know, and so that's, you know, I think when you think about these things, I mean, it's, you know, the board has the authority to place conditions, you know, around, you know, a particular application, you know, but I also suggest to folks, you know, don't be so restrictive that things can't, you know, that they can't function.
Right.
You know, and should somebody decide that, hey, we're gonna stop by to see what Wendy has, or if they decide that, oh, you know, well, maybe we do wind up having a couple hours, you know, of when, we can advertise that instead of going to Dock Square, you can come here. That's something that is conditional for farm and forest, even if it were a bigger use. And so it's conceivable that within a home occ that you could have, you know, members of the public stop by for that. That's conceivable.
okay.
What, but by definition, retail is retail and home occupation is not retail, is that right?
Well,
That's
home occupation is one of these very vague definitions. It's something that could customarily occur within the home, and so, you know, we could probably debate for hours what is customary.
Let's not.
But,
Well,
You
and
know.
make with your hands,
But what I
right?
heard
Make-
Warner say
Wendy's
is that-
making with her hands.
Yeah, what I heard Warner say
Right.
when he was explaining that to us now is, you know, the intent here is, as Wendy and Tim have said, look at, this is overflow, this is teaching, this is a few people, but by its very nature and where it is in resident, in farm and forest, that this can, by its own natural course, grow. And nothing is to, unless the board restricted it, there's nothing really to restrict that, right?
Well,
That-
but
So-
if, but if
Neighbors
it
could
grows, they would have to go to planning board.
Right.
correct, but just be aware, so based on the math, you know, so home occ says no more than 20%. You know, so you take the square footage of the house, the living area, and say that you can devote up to 20% of the floor area, whether that be in an outbuilding or the house, towards your home occ. And so when you do that math, that tells you 520 square feet,
Okay.
you know, not, you know,
Two.
288. You know, so they're
So they
well,
could double,
Under.
correct,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
You know, so they could, yeah, for all practical purposes, almost double that square
And then when they
footage.
double that, then that would just double to, because they do have room for parking, then that would just naturally allow them to get more.
Generally speaking, if a home occ comes under a particular application, right? So right now they're saying, hey, we have a 12 by 24 building, you know, and let's say that they go, wow, this is awesome and great, and we want to add on to this and expand this out to the 520 square feet. Then at that point, I would have them come back here, you know, because the original app was for 12 by 24.
Okay.
That's a change now to the application, you know, of what had been previously approved. But, you know, this board or a future board could go up to that square footage
Okay.
and still be permissible within the standards that you have.
Good.
Yep.
We might go back to this on, when we're deliberating. So just going over the uses again and what you guys put down, just so I have a better handle on it. So I got the classroom, and you're saying that you're not putting a hard line, but you don't envision having more than 3 people or 4 people at a time? Are you comfortable capping it at that, or do you want to leave that open? Are you
No.
trying to leave that open?
I'm fine with capping it at that.
And then, customer meetings, customers coming in looking to have something done, is that what a customer meeting would be for? So you're meeting
If they
in,
want a custom framing on something, that space would be used, because they envision having a big table in there that they could use for lessons, lay out whatever they want framed up, and it gives plenty of space, and they have time to look at different options.
so that's a customer at a time, you're not dealing with 2, unless 2 people were together. You're dealing with
It
one
would-
customer at a time.
Correct.
And you don't have them, you don't envision them to be stacked up, custom
Nope.
meetings stacked up.
These would be more by appointment
I was
type
just gonna say
things.
by appointment.
They're gonna be
Okay.
by appointment, not, again, it's not something, you know, like we went back with the sign, not something where people are just gonna stroll in at their will. It's gonna be by appointments.
So then you'll be able to control the amount
Yes.
of customer meetings on a daily basis, and you can keep it to
Yep.
a limited amount. order pickup is an individual, one person or customer at a
Customer,
time with it.
typically,
And
yeah.
then you did talk about folks from downtown in your business, they're coming out to bring things or pick up things or drop things off.
Very rarely that
But it's
ever occurs.
conceivable that somebody may come, but they're a hit and a run, so to
Yep,
speak.
they pick up something and go right back to the store.
Okay, because again, you're entitled to have somebody work there with you that isn't related to you. But you don't envision anybody working there right now.
There's no necessity for it.
Okay, so then with, one thing that you said in the application was utilizing the outbuilding for a gallery, so, and Tim did say hanging some stuff up. But that's not necessarily for sales purposes, right? For,
It would be more of, so a lot of times when you go into the store now, I often use stuff that's hanging on the wall as examples of how they could frame up stuff.
yeah,
So, I mean, I would definitely have stuff hanging on the wall as examples to use. So people could see, you can frame it this way, you could frame it that way. Or when I'm teaching paintings, all right, here's one thing that you could be doing, this is a technique you could do, so.
but are they for sale? I guess that's what, it's not, you.
Everything's for sale.
I'm sorry, say it again?
Everything is for
Everything.
sale.
True, for the right price.
Well, there's nothing that would prohibit them having things for sale there, though, right?
No.
Why not?
But I'm just trying to get my handle on it.
Right.
Would that cross the retail line?
Again, I look at farm and forest, you've got that as a conditional use, I mean,
But we're not granting a conditional use for retail.
correct, you're granting
We're
a home
granting
lot.
a conditional,
Home lot.
if we grant
Yeah.
the permit tonight, it'd be for home occupation.
Right.
But it seems, well, I guess we can discuss this after, but I'll just plant the seed, that it seems to me that if we granted a home occupation, and if it seemed like, well, wait a minute, has this grown into something more retail? That is not a that's ultimately through the code office. Because it's the code office that would say, we're not an enforcement arm, so if we had granted somebody a home occupation and some other party was suggesting that they had exceeded that, that's a determination initially made by you, correct?
That's right, yeah.
So that's where the fail-safe is on that.
But I think the home occupation, they can sell what she makes and what she does. Retail would be selling what others do.
Not
Correct.
necessarily.
I think that's the difference.
Well, I mean, that is a
The difference in the
distinction.
ordinance.
That is a distinction.
Like, she
Yep.
couldn't sell, if we granted her a home occ, she couldn't sell stuff that I made at her,
As much
at
as
this
she would like.
location. Oh, right.
She does it in the store.
Right, because she does at the store, she sells
Other
products that
people's-
other people
But
make.
here,
Here, she can only sell her stuff, because that's all a home occupation allows.
but are you
It doesn't
saying-
allow her to sell products from others. It's not a store, it's something that she does at her house.
Right, but are you saying, Warner, that as long as you only sold your own product, it could never blossom into retail?
No.
It could blossom into
It could,
retail. Yeah,
yes.
volume would dictate that.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's, we're speaking the same language.
Yeah.
I just wasn't-
Warner, where is what you can and can't do spelled out? Is it
In,
just in 247.6?
well,
Or,
let's go into how you define home occupation. Well, let me pull that up.
Not the
Are you looking
teaching or
at the-
profession which is customarily conducted on or in a residential structure, clearly incidental to and compatible with.
Doesn't offer a lot
Is
of,
anybody
Yeah,
looking at
it
this?
doesn't.
Where-
offer-
where-
I looked at it
I
before we
just keep
came.
the home occupation.
Are
Well,
you
I-
looking at the definition, or are you looking at the actual section
All
of home
it. I look
occupation?
at the definition, and
That's
then I
the-
look at the.
2.2.
2.2?
I
and then
think
home
that's
occupation
the,
is
That's the
7.6.
definition.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm looking
2.2.
at 7.6, and it doesn't really,
No.
that doesn't have the definition
it
as much
doesn't
as
really have the
definition does.
no.
Well, let's hold on that, if I may suggest, let's hold on that until we close our meeting and we have our
So I-
discussion.
Discussion?
I have one more question.
If you have a question for
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
So, Tim, when you were starting off on the reasons for this, you talked about the flood and then missing, the December days. So just so that we're we understand the intent, like we understand the intent, but is there a case where your store at Dock Square floods at the height of Christmas, and then there's a sign that goes on the door saying, you know, this closed, come see us at Goose Rocks Road to keep the sales going?
It's not intended to duplicate what's down there by
Okay.
any means. It's intended for Wendy's artwork,
Okay.
we got into trouble where product got lost. You know, like, the December 23rd storm, there wasn't like a lot of anticipation for that. And so we had like a day and a half of preparation to get everything up off the floor and move everything. And there were customer orders waiting to be picked up, and we tried our best to get them, and they went to the house. And customers came to the house and picked them up. You know, that happened, you know, just in the natural course of our business. But we wanted to have something, it didn't carry the right, you know, everybody understood what went on, but it wasn't how Wendy wants to conduct her business, and it's not how we operate, is that we wanted a very professional, you know, you trust and empower her to do artwork for you, and then to have it show up in a, you know, a bucket, that, you know, that wasn't how we wanted to operate. And so Wendy represents a lot of Maine-made product in the store.
30 different artists.
30 artists and crafters, but that's not what's up
No,
here.
they all,
Those
all
people,
get
those are,
printed and put away.
you know, that just gets packed up and put away. But the 80% of the business down there is Wendy's artwork. And it's, you know, it's difficult to get there in the summertime. You know, even parking, you know, it's, okay, we have the honor lot, or we have behind Allison's. And if you want to carry a 30 by 36 piece of artwork all the way to Allison's, you know, we could facilitate that probably a little bit better. Right now, you can't even pull up in front of the store without somebody from the town saying something to you.
Or you just put your flashes on and run quick.
Yeah, you can if you're lucky.
You can't even do that.
It's-
No,
it's-
I know, I'm only
I'm,
joking, sorry.
you know,
about
I
that.
saw,
Sore subject.
I know.
very sore subject,
know.
but.
So when you go back to like the
Can't do that.
storm situation, it would be really to facilitate the picking up, not to duplicate a retail space.
No.
It's just
No,
really
you
to
can't do that.
facilitate the picking
Yes.
up and making sure that
Yeah.
the packages
Right.
go in a
I mean, I'm not gonna
situation
say that
where-
somebody comes and says, hey, you know, we were here yesterday, now we understand the store's closed, we were looking at that and that and that, you know, I could pull those three together,
Yeah.
and we could, you know, everything we have is modular hanging, you know, with cables that you can just put them up, and there's no holes in the walls, and it, you know, it's just like we have at the store. So we can change the setting for a customer in 2 seconds for their artwork. I mean, we had people in Friday at the store, and they were decorating their home, and they wanted this, and to match this, and to do this, and, you know, it works well in the store if there's nobody else at the store, you know, but that would have been an appropriate appointment only, come, you know, let's pull these images, sit and meet with them, a consult, is really
They
what
have
that,
More time to relax,
You
and
know.
people aren't like
Walking
walking in a room,
all-
and they wanna spread things out, and it's a small space, and it would just give them more comfort and time to be able to look at what they wanna do.
Okay, thanks.
So your intent for this studio is not retail, but more to accommodate your customers, your clients for pickup and for your classes that I think
Yep.
have become kind of popular from what
Yep.
I
Mhm.
see. But not the intent to be a retail.
Not like what's down there.
down there,
I mean,
no.
sounds like you guys have a very loose definition of
Retail.
retail and occupation, so I'm not quite sure.
However, if they decided to do that,
They
Well,
could,
let's-
and
we
didn't,
can-
they
let's
just
and
have to
didn't
go
have
another
more than
layer.
2 employees, it's
They have
covered
to-
under home occupation, just, you know, based on
They
the way
could.
it's described in our code.
Let's get into our discussion in a minute, but anybody else have a question for the applicants? Okay, hearing none, thank you guys. So we'll ask you if we need another question. Did you say yes, you wanted something else?
No, no, so I'm good.
Okay, do we have anybody participating on Zoom tonight? No Zoom? No Zoom. No Zoom, okay, so then, and there's nobody here, other than the applicants. So that portion of the public meeting, I think I will now close. So we're going to have discussion with regard to any of the issues left. Before, I would like to run through everything that's required for us to give approval, but does anybody, do you want to talk about the retail element anymore? Is everybody comfortable, or is anybody befuddled, or?
Well, I did pull up that 242 too, and it says as long as you don't have more than 2 employees, you could have a business, which I guess, Warner, I'll ask you to help, but you could consider it retail, I guess, right?
Right, yeah, so I mean, your retail definition says a business establishment engaged in the sale of goods or services to an ultimate consumer for direct use or consumption, and not for resale, not including automobile-oriented businesses, and, I won't go into the rest. But, yeah, I mean, ultimately, somebody doing a cabinet shop, qualifies in is a bit of manufacturing, but is also potentially retail, in that regard, and we do a home lock, in that same fashion. And as long as it met with the square footage, we'd send them here, if they kept it in that square footage requirement, so.
Right.
Is teaching considered a service?
Yeah,
In the
It's a
commercial
service.
sense, I'm not talking about it, yes.
Mhm.
All right, so if I understand what you're saying, Warner, it's really, I don't want to quote a Supreme Court decision with regard to, you know it when you see it, but that's really what you're saying with regard to when a home occupation might morph into a more direct, beyond home occupation and now retail, is that you'll know it when you see it.
right, yeah. And it's a combination of, it winds up being a combination of, I think, employees, it's employees, it's, you have square footage numbers associated with, how big it can be. Those are things I can see, like those are verifiable, things.
If they had no employees other than themselves on site, and but they were selling more off the property, which would be permitted,
Mhm.
and they didn't expand the size of the building, so they kept it where it's at, and you're satisfied from building permit application and completion, that you're
Correct.
satisfied with all of
Right.
that, then retail, not quote unquote retail, but the home occupation can sell stuff produced by the home occupant without issue.
Correct.
So this is really more of how's my CEO thinking, as opposed to answering my question, but, so if it's the same size, and if it's only product by the home occupant, and if there is no employee, other than the home occupant, then I don't see how you could see when that moves over to retail unless it's just kind of a feel thing.
Well, I mean, I think, instead of thinking of retail as this thing, right, and home occ as this thing, really,
Retail
is-
can be home occ, but if it
this is a
gets
mini
this-
version, right? So in my mind, this is already retail, right? This is already that. It's just
Yeah.
a miniature version of that.
Okay,
Yep.
And
I'm
then,
good with that.
And they don't have to make the stuff at home.
Right,
They can bring it in and sell it.
Right.
As long as they don't
For
have,
retail.
no, for home occ.
But they're also not gonna be displaying open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, they're gonna be appointment only.
But they could.
They could,
Yeah.
And then they have to answer the question, do they want that on their home premise?
That's right,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it does say though, under A1, is customarily carried on in a dwelling unit or in a structure customarily accessory to a dwelling unit, so it would have to be customarily carried on.
Well, but 2.2 says occupation or profession.
Right, it is, A does, a home occupation or profession
So
which
if
is
my
accessory.
occupation is to sell stuff that I purchase from other places,
No,
in my home occupation, I can do that.
no,
You can, I think, isn't it, you have to
I don't think so.
do it.
Well, let's see, let's
Well,
try to
but
find it.
You know what, it's not really pertinent to our discussion here tonight, that's really for another discussion,
We
right?
could have a good philosophical
Yeah, right.
Okay,
about eBay stores, but we won't go there.
yeah, let's not.
It's
go
not,
into
it's not
philosophical.
pertinent to tonight's.
All right, is any, before I start working down all of the elements of a home occupation and make sure to see, to see if the applicants meet that, anything else we need to discuss before we hit that? Anybody? All good?
I just have, when we go down the hours, I just wanted to understand what that meant.
All right, we'll hit that as we get down there. So initially, we need to so does everybody have the home occupation requirements 240-7.6 in front of them, something? No,
I can check.
you can share. Everybody else does?
Yep.
So when we look at A as a whole, the home occupation and profession which is accessory to and compatible with a residential use may be permitted as a conditional use by this board, provided that it is customarily carried on in a dwelling unit or in a structure customarily accessory to the dwelling unit. That's 1. 2 is carried on primarily by a member or members of the family residing in the dwelling unit. That's 2, and 3 is it does not materially injure the character or usefulness of the dwelling unit or accessory structure for normal residential purposes. So I'll pause there on all of these 3. Does anybody have any, does anybody not think that this applicant, this application meets those 3 requirements? That was a negative. Does anybody think it doesn't meet those 3 requirements?
No, it does.
It does. Everybody thinks that, okay. Good. It's
Correct.
not our vote, but I just want to get, see if we need to discuss further. I don't really want to read all of these, so I'll skim them, but B is lengthy. So all home occupations shall conform to the following conditions. 1, it's going to be carried on wholly within the dwelling or accessory structure. We've agreed
Yes.
that
Accessory structure, yep.
that is what we've been, the home occupancy shall be carried on primarily by member or members of the family residing in the dwelling unit. Not more than 2 persons other than family members residing in the dwelling unit shall be employed on the premises in connection with the home occupation. I think that's exactly what's been represented to us. And, as a caveat, if it exceeded this, if there were 3 employees that were non-family members, then that would be beyond the scope of the permission that we may grant here tonight, and then that would be an enforcement issue that would go to the code enforcement office. Everybody good with this particular one, though? Yep, good. That there is no exterior display or exterior signs other than those permitted under section 240-6, period 12, capital E. I think we've gone over that, and that kind of, what is allowed under that signage is going to be observable by our enforcement mechanism, the code enforcement officer. Continuing, no exterior storage of materials and no other exterior indication of the home occupation or variation from the residential character of the principal building. Anybody have a concern with regard to those elements of the requirements of a home occupancy? Nobody here? Anybody down there? All good? I'm up to 4 objectionable conditions such as noise, vibration, dust, smoke. Vibration, smoke, dust, electrical disturbances, odors, heat, glare, or activity at unreasonable hours shall not be permitted. Anybody have any issues with anything there from what we heard?
No, I just wanted to understand from Warner what's unreasonable hours, like what does that really mean?
That's a great question.
I don't want to get philosophical. I was
Right,
just trying to figure out.
I think that it's not unreasonable to, we deal with hours, in which you can do construction activity, right? And so that's typically from, again, another shocker for folks, it's between 7 and 10. So, right. And so anything falling within that realm.
Did you say 7 to 10?
That's right.
We're gonna have to talk about
That's right, yeah, you could be out there with your framing nailer at
Yeah.
9:59, but, so, if I've got to apply any, those are the hours in which you have activity, so to
Okay.
speak.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask one of the applicants to come on up to the state podium here and just tell us what you anticipate the hours to be, generally speaking.
Do that.
You could be very clear.
I'm not gonna be till 7 to 10. It would probably be 9 to 5.
Very good.
I
thank
am
you.
setting my limits.
That's good, that works for me.
Okay.
So we're working off the representation by the applicant that the hours will be in the ballpark of
9 to 5.
9 to 5.
And by appointment,
Okay.
mostly.
Number 5, traffic generated by such home occupation shall not increase the volume of traffic so as to create a traffic hazard or disturb the residential character of the immediate neighborhood. Everybody, I think, does everybody generally know where this property is?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I've been by it a million times as well. Looks great, by the way.
Just one question, so no neighbors have submitted anything?
There's no
They've all
opposition.
been
No.
No materials, no.
welcome to come to the meeting and nobody has voiced an objection? Okay.
That's right. Everybody comfortable with me moving on here? Very good, I see a lot of head nodding. I can go with the head nodding. In addition to the off-street parking provided to meet the normal requirements of the dwelling, adequate off-street parking shall be provided for vehicles, and then it goes on and details that. Does anybody have any question with regard to parking? I think we've covered that, and I'm satisfied.
We covered it.
Great. Number 7, the home occupation may utilize, and now we do a subset here, no more than 20% of the dwelling unit floor area, provided that for the purposes of this calculation, unfinished basement and attic space are not included. And then that's sub A. Sub B, unfinished attic and basement spaces. Sub C, one accessory structure, the floor area utilized in the accessory structure shall not exceed the floor area of the dwelling unit as calculated under what we just read as A, 20%. So the code enforcement officer has already done the math for us and said that this more than conforms. Anybody have any issues here? Except in the free enterprises and farm and forest zone, so we're in the farm and forest zone, so we're accepted out of this. That a home occ shall not be permitted in a single-family dwelling that has an accessory apartment. And that there's only one home occupation shall be permitted per dwelling unit. Let me just ask one of the applicants to get up to verify, you don't have any other permitted home occupation, do you? Just somebody get up there and say that in the microphone.
We do not have
Thank you.
any other
Thank
home
you.
occs
Thank you, Jim.
No accessory apartment.
in our accessory apartment.
Okay, well, they could though.
They could.
Could
Because they're in the farm forest.
But they don't right now.
Right, but they don't, they could or they couldn't, but it does not matter. Okay, anybody need any further discussion on this? Does anybody, let me try that a different way.
You won't.
Does anybody feel the need to impose some kind of specific condition on this home occupation? I myself do not feel that particular need here because I'm very comfortable with the enforcement mechanism that we have here, sitting at the end of the table. But that's me personally. Do you have any need to have any kind of condition? Do you have any
I
kind?
do not.
No.
Do you?
I do not.
Do you?
I do not.
Do you?
No, but I just have a general question, not for them, but just for us. How, like, when you do the, does this transfer, is this specific to Wendy and Tim? Or does it transfer with the property?
So, I mean, obviously, the application is specifically tailored towards what they're doing.
Right.
You know, but arguably, if the property were to sell and somebody were to fit within the same category in terms of like, hi, this property has a home occupation, and I would like to offer, you know, some other type of lesson, you know, maybe it's, I don't know, I'm drawing a blank, but think of some other.
Dancing.
Dancing, right.
How's that?
Right, yeah,
Thanks.
a little tight little spot, I'm just in advance, but something, you know, similar along those lines, so it's not, you know, this isn't a license that expires, you know, with, when,
Transfer, it doesn't,
correct, whenever they know, if they no longer own the property, you know, it is something, home occupations run with the property, but it has to fit within the parameters of what you know, of
What's
the
been
approval.
approved? Okay.
and what we're approving is based on the application.
Right,
So the application is reasonably specific, I think,
Yep,
to the type of use, so.
yep.
So you good?
I'm good.
No other discussion, anybody?
I guess only that I do always say in my little disclosure, I personally know them, I personally have bought some art from them, and I know they'll do a great job.
And then I will note that the town apparently has some art of them. Which is not influencing our decision at all. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the application as written and grant them their home occupation.
I second.
Okay, and then I'm gonna, rather than going down these items, I'm gonna say okay, based on our discussions, I assume that those are both. All in favor, show of hands? That's a unanimous showing of all six hands. Nobody is in opposition, so granted. Thanks, folks, thanks very much. So we'll get a decision out to you. You know, you gotta do whatever Warner says. Deal with Warner. Our job
Yeah,
is
so
done.
they'll do a written decision, you'll get a copy of that, copy goes in file, a copy goes to you. Typically, they get recorded, you know, at the registry, so. And then, yeah, and then we'll move on to the building permit.
I'll be
I was
down to
gonna
see
say,
you on the
next
road.
step,
All
building
right.
permit, all
Yep.
that fun stuff.
So you don't have to hang around, you can take off, we're just gonna do administrative stuff.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
nice to see you.
Pleasure.
You guys have a good night.
Yep, you too. You know, you're gonna do a draft, you know
Yeah,
what we
got it,
discussed.
yeah,
I'm gonna give you this, because I don't know if you have a copy of it, this is the last one we
got
did.
that, yep,
So you might wanna work off of this one to some limited degree, but you have one.
got it all.
Okay. So that brings us to election of officers. Yes, so we have, the officers that the board is supposed to have is a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. Presently, I am the chair, and Karen is the secretary. Who's the vice chair? I don't even remember. I know.
Must be April.
What?
April, I think, right?
I
Isn't it
think
April?
April, I think you are, I think April
think
is
you
the
are
vice
April.
chair, yeah, because the old vice chair was
Gone,
Wayne, and then I think you became the vice chair after that.
Oh, okay.
One step away.
It's my recollection anyway.
So I've let everybody on the board know that I have, I think I've completed 10 or 11, no, 10, 9 or 10 years on the board, and I have one more year in my term. But I'm gonna step down as the chair. So tonight's the last meeting that I'm gonna be the chair at. I've given everybody more than adequate notice that I'm gonna step down. And my logic is, yeah, I'll be around, so if you got a question that I might be able to help you with, I will. As long as it doesn't make me work very much. So,
April is vice chair,
April is vice chair, very good.
there you go.
So, I guess, that we need to talk about, that you all need to talk about, who you would like to have as a chair. So, Mr. McDonald at the far end of the table.
I would like to nominate April Dufault as chair.
As chair, and I'm going to second that nomination. Now, let's discuss this to the extent that, April, you willing to do it?
unless somebody else would rather.
Okay, does anybody else wish to nominate anybody else? I didn't hear that one.
She turned and looked at me.
Does anybody want to throw their hat in the ring?
Seems like April's natural succession.
She does have a gift, doesn't she?
Yes.
But I know Mary Beth is running for another town office, which may take up a bit of your time. And I know that Karen is soon to be nominated to be continuing secretary as we determine when she turns out of her appointment, which seems to be a little bit of a mystery at this time.
So I may be termed out, I may not be termed out. Not
Okay.
sure.
So we will find that out in the interim. And then, do you have any interest in being the chair? Or?
Oh, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And Mr. McDonald can, on the record, say that he cares not to. I know he has conveyed that to me separately, privately, in many ways. Well, any discussion needed, folks?
Wait, we need a vice.
Well, no, we do one vote.
Oh, one at a
office
time.
One at a time, yeah.
Yeah, we all have vices. I don't think we have a need for a vice, but, all right, then, we've had a nomination, we've had a second, so all in favor of electing April as our chair, raise your hand. That is fine, that is a unanimous board, so April, you are now the chair.
Hey, now is this, can I say something at this point?
All these finance
Can you say something at this
Yeah.
point? I suppose, we're not done, but
Oh,
we have two
I can
more
wait,
offices.
I can wait till the end and then say something.
Okay, why don't we
All
wait
right,
till the
I'll do
end? Okay, so now we need
What are we waiting till the end for?
vote vice and secretary.
a new vice chair. So, again, I'm not gonna be vice chair.
Kevin?
I'm not gonna be in elected office. Vice chair, we need a nomination.
I'll nominate Kevin McDonald.
And I'll
Kevin
second
McDonald,
that.
and it's been seconded, Kevin. So,
Twist is right.
uh,
Well, here, the only question I would ask of Mary Beth is, Mary Beth, are you stepping out because you're running for select board for any of the positions?
Yeah, I mean, I would do vice chair if I didn't win, so, but we're nominating now, so I don't, there's a 50-50 chance I could win. So there's only two of us running, so I don't know how to.
Could be even higher than that.
well, I mean, if, yeah, because you might be resigning, so I think it's wise that you don't run for anything now, but if you were not elected, then you could seek to become vice chair, and it would only require a resignation of one and a re-voting by the rest of us, which,
So Kevin, I would back you up. I'd get you out of the seat.
There you go.
Okay,
Okay, I'll stick
is
with
that okay?
that works.
okay. So then we
So does
have,
that mean you're not gonna vote for me for select?
Oh, yeah, you just lost a vote.
oh, okay, well, that's a separate election, we're not gonna take that any further, so, so we have a nomination and a second, so all in favor of, by show of hands of electing Kevin as our vice chair, raise your hand. I see everybody, anybody opposed? None opposed, so I assume you're abstaining?
Yeah, you don't vote for yourself, do you?
Sure you can.
Sure you do.
I bet you all the federal officers do.
Okay, well, I'll vote for
So
myself.
put that hand up there. It's a 6.
There you go. I voted for myself.
Oh, okay, 6-0. Very good, and then, as we discussed, we're not entirely sure of when Karen is termed out of being on this board. She's always been an active member of many boards in town, but that's why we're not positive of when she's termed out here. But she's serving as secretary, and she's willing, from conversations I've had, to continue as secretary on the condition that if it turns out that she is termed out in the month of June, then we will have to elect another secretary, assuming that Karen gets nominated and second that nomination and voted in as secretary tonight. So on those,
So I nominate Karen Schlegel for secretary.
Second.
okay, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. That's another 6-0 vote. Well, this is quite a slate. So we have,
And we have all 6 of us.
that's right.
Look at us.
Though we're supposed to have a board of 7,
Right.
so we're short a member. As of this day, we have a new chair, April, who will sign this decision as the new chair.
I will.
I won't be authorized to sign it. You'll be the chair. You're the chair.
You were the chair tonight when we did the
I know, but
decision.
you're now Madam Chair.
Boy, he handed that over quick, huh?
Hey,
Yeah, he did.
Whew, that's like,
I'll look it over.
All right, I'll have it done tomorrow. and send it to
So,
you.
Okay.
But
So
she
Paul,
should
can I
actually
now-
sign out.
Oh, and
Make a quick comment.
Kevin is vice chair and Karen is secretary, so that's great. Great slate, great slate. Okay, Mr. McDonald, yes.
so just very quickly, on behalf of the town of Kennebunkport, I would like to thank Mr. Cadigan for his 9 and/or 10 years of service as the chair
Well, I've been
of
chair the
the,
whole time, I don't think.
well, I'm thanking you for whatever that time period was.
Well, I appreciate that.
keeping
On the behalf-
Thank you very much.
On
Thank
the
you very much.
behalf of the town of Kennebunkport.
I look forward to, thank you very much. I look forward to sliding to the end of the table.
You're gonna be sitting right next to me helping me.
So the next item on our agenda is adjournment. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? This meeting is adjourned.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank